How are we doing today? This is my chance to get a talk here with Dr. Peter Ntephe, and he goes by Peter, even though he's deserving of many, many degrees. And he's the CEO of ERHC Energy. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you very much for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited. I love when we get to do global type interviews because we can learn so much more about the world and what we have in common, and then things that are different as well. So this is super fun. So first of all, tell me how'd you you have three, four, five, no, 5 degrees plus. How did you get into this kind of business?
It's always been something that being a Nigerian was almost inevitable. I was born in Nigeria and I have other nationalities now, but Nigeria's economy is predicated mostly on oil and gas.
Okay.
So at some point, for most professionals, there will be a connect with that industry. And so I started life as a lawyer, a practicing corporate lawyer. And
Okay.
some of what I did in my earliest days were in oil and gas. And then I took an advanced degree with a specialization and so on and so forth. And eventually I was headhunted for ERHC a long time ago. This is almost 25 years ago. And then it's been mainstream oil and gas from then on.
Very good. So what's the best thing about what you do, and what's the most challenging thing?
Best thing about what I do is to actually meet a lot of different people in a lot of different countries because ERH is an international exploration company, and that always broadens your mind when you travel. What we do is with a lot of countries that are called frontier provinces for oil and gas. So I'm also happy that we are able to bring hope for energy security, hope for increased revenues for oil, and that we participate in a process that creates brand new industries and brand new livelihoods for a lot of the nations that we deal in, because we are one of those who go in first to on the ground floor in looking for oil and gas in many countries. The most challenging thing, of course, in our industry is the amount of money you would have to risk
Hmm.
and the general amount of risk you have to take when you're what we call a pathfinder. You're exploring for oil in territories where there are no proven discoveries. It's a huge risk. The payoffs can be huge as well when they come through, but they rarely do. So it's a continuous gamble and it's a continuous challenge to be able to keep yourself in the business until that big hit everyone's looking for.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So, great insight. So, how do you convince potential investors to take the risk?
Well, it's scientific, even though some people would say pseudoscientific. You go in, you do your G&G, geological and geophysical studies, and then you have to tap some brilliant geologists and geophysicists to analyze the data and establish that there's a high probability, prospectivity as we call it. There's a high prospectivity coming out from the data that you've gathered. And if you can do that, then you can do your projections and show people, well, this is our chance of success. But if it comes through, this is what you're going to make. This is the upside of your investment. And then you can draw on precedent. This is what has happened somewhere else. And we have analogs in the data we are seeing. Now, just imagine if you invested now, you're going to have multiples of your money back in a very short while. That's what happens, but you also have always to tell them about the risk. We're saying this could happen. but the greater chances that it probably won't happen. So are you willing to take the risk?
Mm. Yeah, that's great. So tell me about this. How is doing business in South Africa different than doing business in the United States or in Nigeria specifically, if you want?
One of the first things when you're doing business internationally is to imbibe the old saying, when in Rome, do like the Romans. So whenever you go to a new culture, you try and adapt to it and accept it for what it is. Don't try and make it or judge it by some standards from elsewhere. Accept it for what it is and try to work with the standards that you have. The United States is, for me, the world's leading nation. I will always say that. You know, we who Americans like to knock the United States, but it's still, for me, the greatest country on earth, right? I stand strong and firm when I say that. Everywhere has its problems, but the United States is the leader. So a lot of things have been developed, a lot of things are advanced, a lot of things are done well and easily in America. In other places, not so developed. But in everything where there's a disadvantage, if you look very well, you'll also see an advantage of doing things there. So certain things might, on first blush, not seem as easy as they are in America. But if you remove your American spectacles and put on the spectacles of the locality, then you'll start to find out advantages that maybe you wouldn't get in America. So what you really do everywhere is to try and look at things from the eyes of a local.
I love it. And clearly, since you're from there, that gives you a better view and background into what is really happening with culture, with business, et cetera, correct?
Yes, in a sense, yes.
Okay.
Sometimes no, because when you've lived out for a very long time, you always think that things don't change. But when you've lived out for a very long time, some of your familiarity is gone because everyday things change. But yes, generally, because you were born in a certain place, I was born in Nigeria, but Africa is a big place. And to many of the countries I go to, I'm as much a foreigner as anybody else, even if I'm African. So in many countries I go to, all they see is the American guy, the guy from the American company. So, but yes, it's definitely an advantage when you grow up in a certain culture. I use the culture generally. When you grow up in that culture, it's easier to adapt to certain things.
Yeah, I feel like you can at least gain some confidence. I actually have a lady in my office building here that's from Nigeria, and she said that they call her white lady over there because she's well spoken and she's what I mean that's according to her, you know, and they actually call her white lady because she's too American for them. So I don't know if you had any similar experiences, but I thought that was pretty humorous.
Exactly.
Okay, so what are you most proud about as far as things that your country have that your old country have that are their former country that have that are different than here? What do you think is really cool about doing business there versus here?
The vibrancy of the people.
Mm.
I don't know how to put this, but really, when conditions are generally not as comfortable or things are not delivered to you on a plate, as they are to us in America, a lot of things are delivered to us on a plate. Oh my God, you can't believe it if you don't have anything else to compare it with. But when things are delivered to you on a plate, you start to have a certain sense of entitlement. I know I have it now, you know.
Mm.
I complain a lot about little things, But when you're in a place where you have to, challenge yourself every day to get things done, you develop almost a philosophical attitude to life. I was reading something that a Nigerian wrote yesterday, and it has the theme, manage it like that, This is not working, manage it like that. That is not working, manage it like that. So that is really find a way around. That's, I think, what I enjoy about working in those places. And every time I come back home to America, I feel like, it's not really bad. Manage it like that. Which is not to say you should get complacent. I do also a lot of criticism when I go to Nigeria and I say, I challenge people. This can be better, let's make it better. But it's just that philosophical attitude that enables you to cope better with life's challenges. It's that philosophy, just imbibing it, not necessarily accepting things that are not working, but imbibing the philosophy of must be a way around the problem.
Yeah, I love that. Can you repeat that last thing? You said, let's find a way around the problem. Is that what you said?
Yes, let's find a way to solve a problem. Let's find a way to as Nigerians would say, manage it. But let's find a way that instead of complaining, what can we do about it?
I love that. Being scrappy and figuring out ways to solve problems. That's a real thing. And it's a necessity, more so there than maybe here in some cases, correct?
Yes.
That's great. I love that. So, what's your vision for your company? What do you want it to be when it's finished?
Well, like everybody else, I wanted, on behalf of the shareholders, you're really an employee of the shareholders. On behalf of the shareholders, you wanted to deliver fantastic value. You want to make your shareholders rich. You want to make them happy. And you want their investments to bear themselves out multiple times. There's a company called Cove Energy. It's one of the fabled stories for our industry. So Cove Energy goes from this little insignificant company to practically several hundreds of millions of dollars worth in share value on the back of a discovery in Mozambique. It's a case study, and I think it's still on Wikipedia. That's the gold standard for what we do. That you could go from this small company to a massive company that gets bought out on the back of a discovery of the work you've done in a frontier province. And so that's what we hope to deliver at ERHC for our shareholders. It's not been an easy journey. We've come close, but the gods of geology have not favored us. But it's something that we definitely keep trying to do.
So what is the biggest, I know the biggest challenge is actually finding the oil, but what's the biggest challenge from keeping people on board, keeping people motivated with the hope of doing this and making this discovery?
The biggest challenge currently is not even from the industry, it's from outside the industry, the energy transition. We have very strong views about the basis of the energy transition, but I won't go into it here. The fact is the energy transition exists, and there's a lot of opposition to oil and gas, to fossil fuels, which, of course, from our perspective, we think is very misconstrued and is based on very questionable basis, to put it mildly.
Hmm.
However, that exists and it's a formidable force now, politically, economically, and more importantly, in terms of raising investment.
Mm-hmm.
20 years ago, I would walk into investment houses in New York and they would roll out a red carpet. Once you talked about oil, everyone rolled out the red carpet. They wanted to hear it. Are you going to be the next big thing?
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago, it's very difficult to get people to open the door. And it's been like that because oil and gas is suddenly bad news. However, we see the tide turning, if only slightly, as some of the bigger companies, the majors, ExxonMobil, have struck out to say, well, this renewables thing is okay, but we're going to stick to what we do and what we do best because there's an energy gap coming from the demonization of oil and gas. And it's not going to be good for humankind at all. So we're going to persist with what we do. We'll try and make ourselves cleaner, if that is what it takes, but we're going to persist with the industry. And what happens is when the tide turns like that, then you have more interest. People start to come around to say, okay, let's go back to looking at investing in this area, in this sector. And we are hoping that that uptick continues and the momentum builds.
So that's great. I agree because the average Joe out there can't afford the energy that is clean. I use in quotes, and there's going to be an economic repercussion of trying to have all that, of when I use it in quotes again, clean energy. Is that a good
Yes.
synopsis?
And of course, those of us in the industry question really how clean is clean. But like I said, that's a discussion for another day. How clean really is clean.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So how do you differentiate yourself from your, I don't know who, I think I know who your competitors are, but I don't want to assume. How do you differentiate yourself? Why should I invest with you versus investing with somebody else that's doing exploration in new frontiers?
Well, what we used to say, particularly about ERHC, is that we're the American company with an African face, which shouldn't be taken personally to refer to me because the company is bigger, much bigger and older than me. But what we meant by that was when we went into Africa from Houston,
Mm-hmm.
we tried to adopt a local face. We didn't just go in as these buccaneering, know-it-all American company who would teach the locals how to do things. We always try to get either a local representative from the get-go or we partnered with a local company. So
Mm-hmm.
that way you work with local knowledge and you have local sympathies. So we represented ourselves as the American company with an African face, and we meant that our strategy was built around that mantra. And so we're saying we're going to be better received than many companies in competition with us because of our differentiating strategy of being a friend and not a foe or being an overlord of the communities we went into. So that is our key selling point. The American company with an African face.
I love it. Well, first of all, congratulations, because many folks don't actually know their unique selling proposition. So I give you kudos for that. And I really do believe it is different. And I think what you said was really important because we can say we have a unique advantage or difference, but if we don't live it out and prove it out through everything we do, through our employees, through how we interact with our customers, potential customers, partners, then we really have just empty words. So congratulations on actually living that out. And it's got to be motivational for you, doesn't it? Because man, you guys could actually be a game changer for whole communities.
Yes, like I said at the beginning of the interview, it's one of the things I enjoy most. You go into countries that sometimes don't even have an industry going, and then you're part of making the industry happen. And then you see the hopes and dreams of local communities, not so much even the ministers and the top people in government who are very sophisticated and well to do and know what could come. But from some of the host communities, potential host communities, like when we went to the Turkana region in Kenya, the way they celebrated us. Now, let me give a background to that. Kenya discovered oil in the 2000s through a company, British company called Tullow Energy. And the gods of oil, as you say, are very funny. They rarely put oil in the nice big cities and where it's easy to get to. Usually they put oil in the desert, the Niger Delta, difficult terrain. And in Kenya, oil was discovered in the Turkana region. The Turkana region is a remote region in the northwest of Kenya, which is quite inaccessible relative to the rest of that beautiful country. And that was where oil was discovered. And so we had to fly out there. I went out in this tiny plane. I still have the photograph somewhere. Really tiny plane. It was not much bigger than me personally, out to Turkana. But the way the community received us, honestly, it was very emotional for me. The way they received us, because for them, this would potentially change their history and their fortunes. If further oil discoveries were made and we had this roaring industry going on, it would just change even their social position among Kenyans. And so you kind of feel that you're part of something big among the people. And like I said, we always try and work as if we are locals. So we immediately became or tried to become a Turkana company. We tried to become part of them. I personally tried to do everything, eat the food, learn the dance, and all that. I was there for a few days. But that is always a very pleasant thing. Very, very pleasant to be part of this new vision and this new dream and actually play an active part, no matter how small, in making it happen.
That's beautiful. I think that's a great place to end it here. I really appreciate your wisdom and your experience and your kind of insight into global business, Peter. And I hope you all change the world. Like it'd be incredible to really impact some of these communities in a positive way and make a difference in them. So thank you so much for that, and keep on fighting.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, likewise.